Hey everybody, I'm just making an update on the trailer. As you know, I had talked about last year when I previewed this trailer about moving the axle to the back of the trailer. At the time, it didn't really make a difference because the boat sat on it pretty much in the middle and all the weight was evenly distributed. Well, this year over the wintertime, I picked up a new motor, a 20 horsepower Suzuki 4-stroke. It unfortunately weighs 100 pounds and is not something that I can be just throwing in and out of the back of the truck like my old little 4-horse that I had just for fun. So now I've got to tackle this project of moving this axle. As you can see, I have the trailer is flipped over right now. It's sitting up on the bunks because it's not hurting anybody to do that. They're wood, it's pretty sturdy. The trailer is not that heavy. The plan is, as you can see, I'm going to move in here a little closer to it. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the brackets and I'm going to just move them to the back. So I'm going to take this back mounting hole here, this one here. I'm going to move it and put it on that mounting hole back there. And then I'll drill a new hole for the front on that. And then since these holes will still be here, they'll still be present in the metal, I will take measurements from these two holes here, and then I will drill new holes for those two up front and just slide the whole thing to the back, just using the measurements that are currently existing on the trailer to line up in the back of the trailer, centering or using the ones in the back as my initial point so that it's basically centered on the trailer, because that's the big problem with these things. Putting an axle on here is you've got to have it even to the center of the trailer, right? It's got to be, if it's 100 inches, it's got to be 100 inches on this side and 100 inches on this side, or the whole trailer will pull off to one side. It won't drive straight. You'll end up dragging it a little bit on one side and wearing that wheel out, and it won't be any fun. So that is the plan. I've got one side already apart. As you can see, there's the bracket for it. There's the holes already there existing. I'm going to take the front off, move it. I am going to move the fenders, I think, as well. I might set them down a little bit lower. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do with the fenders, honestly. I may leave them off temporarily just so I don't have to drill more holes to mount them, but it may be easy enough. I mean, it's one plate. It's got, looks like two or four. It's got 4 screws through it in the frame, and then one holding that, and then 2 on each end just to hold it on there. It's not structurally holding anything. It's just, you can't stand on these fenders. But I'll give you updates as I go. And that's it for the moment. All right. So I have the axle moved, as you can see. This is where it was. You can see right here. There are the 2 front mounts. There are the 2 backs. You can see them on the other side. There's 2 there, 2 in the back. Thankfully, the way this has worked out is the back bracket, if I turn it around so that the pivot pin, which is this piece right here, if I turn the bracket around so that this pivot pin is in the back, then I can slide the axle back just far enough to where this front bolt hits where the back of the old that bracket there used to mount, at least one of the holes. So that saves me from having to drill an extra set of holes and lining everything up, because then I can just mount off of that hole right there. So that saves some effort on that, which I'm thankful for, and I don't see any reason that that cannot work, because this bolt here is not in the center of the bracket. It's offset. As you can see, it's 2 here, like 4 there, and I don't see any reason. They put carriage bolts here so that when this slides, because as this bounces, this slides up under here and slides back and forth, and as long as it's captured and can't slide out, it's not going to go anywhere, and I don't foresee it sliding out in any way. I mean, I guess there is that possibility that that could happen, but I don't foresee that being, I think that that's probably really remote. If I turn the bracket back around to how it was initially, it sits way up here. I think initially it set a lot closer towards the middle of the spring versus a little further back. I'm really inclined to go ahead and take that risk. I don't think it's really going to come out. We can see. I mean, I can't foresee a problem with that or that happening somehow. All of the bolts on this thing and all the nuts, unfortunately, are these ridiculous castle bolts. They all have this built-in washer head. The nuts are the same thing. They're all these washer nuts, washer lock nuts. They're all grade 5, which is, they're essentially a specialty nut and washer. I mean, that or nut and bolt. The ones for these brackets for this mounting were all carriage style, which makes them even more specialty. And I'm not going to fight with trying to find those anywhere. I think the biggest challenge that I've got is figuring out what to do with the fenders, because unfortunately, as you can see, is the mount here for the boat slide up on, which holds the board that the boat slides up on, is almost right in the middle of this, and there's nowhere I can move this axle to make that work without having to drill all new holes and making it all fit. So that might have to sit off for now until I can figure out something else to do with it or some other way to mount it. Time will tell. But that's it for now. When I get it all mounted up and get all the bolts and everything in place, we'll see what it looks like at that point. Updates to come. All right, back again. So all the holes are drilled. You can see them here. I've hit them with primer and the paint. I'm just waiting for it to dry. It's unfortunately rainy today. Got all the bolts I need. And we're just waiting for paint to dry. That fun business. Here is the fender. Notched it out to fit over that right there. It's going to fit over both this brace and this support arm. So that's this section right here. I had to cut both of them. They're not perfect, of course, but I wasn't striving for perfect. But all the holes are drilled. Everything looks like it's going to work. I tell you, the big thing I did before I decided to do this, and how I decided on the location of where to put the axle, is I went online and I just Googled trailers. Boat trailers, and you look at a boat trailer. You look at all the small boat trailers. Don't look at the the ones for the yachts and the $400,000 boats that cost as much as your house. You look at the small boat trailers, and you see where the axles are, and the axles are always in the back. They're always way in the back because that's where all the weight is. That's where your motor sits. That's where 80%, 75% of all the weight in a boat is the motor when you're going down the road. So that's what it is. I've also got a stabilizer for it. that sits on the frame that hooks to the end of the hooks to the bottom of the motor to help keep it from bouncing and jarring onto the stern wall too much, so it doesn't rip it apart. Because it is just an inflatable boat, so it's easier to spend the $20 and get the brace than it is to rip the whole thing apart and destroy the boat. Because I'd rather use it than not be able to. But here's the the axle. It's way forward. It's just out of the way at the moment. But this is the currently where I'm at while I wait for paint to dry on this cruddy rainy day. And that's where it is. All right, here it is. Everything is bolted together. I've refilled all the holes. I didn't know how important it was, since this is the bracket center line of the trailer here, so the two halves come together right here. So I went ahead and just refilled all the bolt holes that were taken out when I moved the thing, just to make sure, I don't want any questions about it being as sturdy as it was. So I just refilled everything, reused what I could reuse. Here is the trailer moved, or the axle moved. It lined up. I mean, I couldn't ask for it to line up any better than that. And it came out pretty good. Just doing, copying from the front to the back. The only thing that did not line up very well is the fenders. I don't think it's going to hit. I mean, it's not like I'm putting a lot of weight on this thing. It's, 100 pounds, 120 pounds worth of boat, 100 pounds worth of motor is pretty much all this thing is ever going to carry. Maybe a few additional items, but that's pretty much it. I may at a later date move the fenders, or just take them off entirely and leave them off, or come up with a different solution. I've yet to decide. Maybe I'll just mount something to the underside of the boards, just get some sheet metal or something and just mount them. Just screw it to the boards and call it good. I don't see a problem with it. I don't think it's going to hit or anything. It's just, an aesthetic thing, really. But it's all done. I don't think we're going to flip it over today. I think it's going to wait a day or two, and then I'm going to flip it back over to where it's back on its tires and looking good. I did have to replace one marker light that we busted, or I busted, moving it. As you can see right here, when we flipped it over, I kind of put it on that corner and used it as a pivot. Oops. But the marker lights are dirt cheap, and if that's the only thing that breaks, hey, I'm all for it. But yeah, that's the trailer. It is all moved. Looks good. Motor is sitting up there. It looks like it's ready to go. Weather is craptacular today, so no rush on the boat. The weather's supposed to cool back off again. Here we are in upper New England, so it's not really boat season yet, or at least she's definitely not going to go into water season. You can go out on it, but don't go in it, because it's still a little on the chilly side. All right, here we are. This is a follow-up. We've had the boat out a couple of times now since the trailer modification. It is doing pretty well. Yeah, we got the new Suzuki 20-horse 4-stroke on there, which has been quite enough outboard for this thing. I mean, it's more than enough motor for this size of a boat. It's rated up to 25 horse, but I think 20 is probably plenty, at least for what we're doing. We're not doing any offshore stuff, and we tested it using a GPS just to see, curious just to see how fast it would go. And it would do, it did 20 miles an hour. So flat out with that motor, which on a boat is fast. In a car doesn't really feel that fast, but when you're on a boat on the water and the thing's hitting the waves and bouncing around a little bit, it's pretty quick, or it feels quick anyway. I did change the attachment points on the front for the tie down strap, or for this safety strap, this whatever you want to call it, winch. They recommend, you know, in the manual for the boat to attach here on these anchor points on each side instead of the center point here. I don't know why they don't go into detail. They just suggest doing it there instead. So I went ahead and changed it. You know, same canopy from last year works. You know, it's not a problem. It does need, you know, unfortunately, you know, if you go out in the morning, if you're not out at high noon, you're going to get some sun in from the sides, and that's a bummer. So, you know, suggestions would be, if you buy a canopy, buy one with sides on it, or make some form of sides for yourself, just to help shield you from the sun a little bit, because, you know, when it's beating in on the sides, it's burning your arms, and it's never a good time. This is a good shot of the motor here. Did attach it here. I don't know how well you can see it because of the way the sun is. I did put a transom saver on it because, you know, this is an inflatable boat. This thing is just attached to PVC tubes. So, you know, I did put a transom saver on it. I did try it a couple of different ways. The first way is I just left the full length saver on it, and I had it hooked to the axle because it comes with a cup hook, which is supposed to hook onto rollers, but it just did not work for me, because every time you hit a bump, the motor bounces a little bit and it just shifts off the axle. So I went with the other mounting option that they make, or that it comes with, which is you make a hard point for it. Luckily, in the center of the trailer, there is a bolt hole right there. All I had to do was just cut the two shafts down for the saver, because they're made for 36-inch long reach, and I only needed to reach, you know, 16 inches or so. So to be able to remove it and stuff, I just rearranged a little bit, cut them off, and that's how it hooks up. You know, it just holds it. I put a bungee cord on it just to make sure it doesn't come loose, and if it does bounce, it just stays attached to it. It works. We've traveled with it a couple times. It will move around a little bit, but it doesn't move around, you know, it moves around a little, which is perfectly fine. A little movement's not going to hurt you. This is the trailer. I mean, this is the loadout, you know, same setup as we had last year. Little bungee net, which is for, actually it's a trunk organizer out of a car. It's just clipped in. Great for throwing things into, life jackets, that sort of thing, things you don't want rolling around in the back of in your boat. I did add a couple things this year. I've added these pads here with these Scotty ports on them. I got a hold of a Garmin Striker 4 with a depth finder on it, which goes right into the port. Cable it in, small little 7 amp hour 12 volt battery, hangs off the back. The battery doesn't, but the little transducer does. It tells me how deep the water is, because, you know, I don't want to run into anything with my expensive little motor. I got one up here at the front for cup holder. I'm actually got a special cap for it that looks like this one here, that it has this anchor point, these anchor points here, so that you can tie off to a dock with it. One of the places we've been going lately has a small dock that you can tie to. I just got to get longer screws because they don't seem to reach. Like on this one here, it didn't reach for some reason. The other ones it did. So before I change this one, I'm going to put actually this one up here. I'm going to look into getting one. I might put another one on the outside here just for that purpose there. and put one on the other side, so I have to order some more. But I think that's the update for this year. You know, everything's working great. That motor just sips gas. We found that it cruises, you know, we cruise at around 7 to 10 miles an hour. Seems to be a good coasting speed for us and the dogs. They don't mind it, we don't mind it. Works great for us. You know, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead, put them below. Oh, and if you didn't notice, it is kind of jacked up. Right now I'm going to do a little video of some cons of these, and it is jacked up right now just to drain the water out of it, and I'll get into that in that video.